of those who watched Joe Biden speak were, felt good or liked what he had to say. 85%, except his ratings were dramatically down from Trump's speech. Not particularly popular. And now we got another story out of Seattle. 200 officers have resigned. This is crazy, man. Feels like the system is on fire, not to mention Kamala Harris's failures at the border. So joining us today is the intrepid Drew Hernandez. How's it going, man?
What's going on, Tim? Thanks for having me again.
You want just a quick introduction?
Yeah, well, my name is Drew Hernandez. For those that don't know me, I'm the host of Drew Hernandez Live on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter, Drew H Live. I'm sure you've seen some of my viral footage covering the riots in 2020 and going on in 2021.
Now doing a lot of, you were covering the
and
border.
The border. Yeah, a lot at the border. We're going to get into that tonight as well. A lot of stuff that this isn't like, before I talk about this tonight, I just want people to understand when I talk about the border, this isn't like some kind of like conservative talking point type of thing, smearing the left or smearing Democrats. This is a serious issue. I don't care what your politics are. You should seriously get behind some of the things that you may have never heard tonight, because obviously Kamala Harris isn't doing anything about it. So
absolutely,
we're gonna have to get into that later in the show.
Right on. We got Ian.
Well, hello everyone. Ian Crossland here at Ian Crossland and at IanCrossland.net. If you'd like to follow me there, check it out.
Yeah, and I'm over here in the corner pushing buttons. I'm Sarah Patch Lids.
This is freaky, man. Yeah, we did a show yesterday with Jack, and it was just like it was not, it went well beyond raining on someone's parade. It was, what do we say, acid rain, rain, and fire and brimstone. People screaming as their skin melts in front of them. It's just not raining on a parade, man. The parade's just engulfing in flames, and wow, these stories are freaky. So before we get started, head over to timcast.com, become a member. There's a big blue button in the top right. It says members only. Click that button and you can sign up. Then get access to this amazing members only area. You should check out some of the conversations we've been having. We had a very serious conversation with Jack last night about what the founding fathers would be expecting today. And it is a pretty brutal conversation because I think most people would assume the founding fathers would have done something very different at this point in history had they been around. But we do bring up some interesting points about the modern state of warfare, 5th generation, 4th generation, etc. So go to timcast.com, sign up, and don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and if you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify or any other podcast platform, leave us a good review, give us 5 stars, and as always, share the story. My friends, let's get into one of the most shocking stories I've ever seen from the Star Tribune. And I love the framing on the story. Feds plan to indict Chauvin, other 3 ex-officers on civil rights charges. Ex-cop would face federal charges in 2 cases, 3 others in the Floyd case. They say, leading up to the Derek Chauvin murder trial, Justice Department officials had spent months gathering evidence, but they were worried that this case, if they went after Chauvin, it could disrupt the state's case. So they came up with a contingency plan. If he were found not guilty on all counts, or the case ended in a mistrial, they would arrest him at the courthouse, according to sources familiar with the planning discussions. Now that's an incredible statement. They go on to mention, under the contingency arrest plan, the Minnesota U.S. Attorney's Office would have charged Chauvin by criminal complaint. Why didn't they? If Derek Chauvin committed a crime, why doesn't the state file a criminal complaint? Because this is not about whether he's innocent or guilty. They're going to say a quicker alternative for a federal charge that does not require a grand jury. So they could arrest him immediately and then ask a grand jury for an indictment, but they wouldn't need one. They literally just said in the article they would not require a grand jury. So why? Interesting. Say, according to sources who are not authorized to speak publicly, this sounds to me like the DOJ is a tool completely at this point of the Democrats going after Giuliani. And this story should make your hair, should make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. There's no justice. You combine this with the story of all these mass resignations of cops, and I don't blame them. I applaud them because they want retribution. These are zealots who have reached the highest level of government. Let me just say one more thing before we break on a bigger conversation. This is what I was warning of a couple years ago when I talked about the potential for civil war. People are like, oh, shut up. The federal government is strong. And I'm like, what happens when the zealots get into positions of power, or those in positions of power get converted to the cult and become this rage machine? What happens when Antifa finds its way into the DOJ? Well, if he's found not guilty, meaning he could not be convicted, we'll arrest him anyway. Mm-hmm. What makes it even crazier, the judge flat out said, it would be impossible. I'm going to paraphrase, be a little hyperbolic, but he said it's impossible for Chauvin to have a fair trial, so screw it. The defense wanted the jury sequestered. He said, no, we're not going to do that. The defense wanted a change of venue. How can we have a fair trial in Minneapolis where all these riots are happening? And the judge said there's nowhere they can go in the state where this won't happen. Okay, if there's no way to have a fair trial, case dismissed. Because we are not just locking random people up, but we've become a nation that started as it is better that 10 guilty persons escape than one innocent suffer. 2, it is better that the innocent suffer if it makes the cult feel good. Or I guess prevents, I would say maybe if it prevents rioting, but we know that doesn't happen. The riots still happen. So welcome to the brave new world. Huh?
I kind of blame myself, at least, that I didn't take it seriously that this mentality could permeate into the government until like 2017 or 2018. And I was like, oh, maybe it's too late by the time I realized it could happen.
Even back then, people were telling me, no, Antifa fighting with Proud Boys is nothing. It's not going to get to the DOJ. And besides, Donald Trump is president. Here we are.
Well, I think we have to understand part of their ideologies with Black Lives Matter and Antifa. They are cultural Marxists. They are neo-anarchists. And part of what they want to do is they want to subvert not only law enforcement. That makes sense to me, because that's what they do, is they subvert law enforcement. And right now that includes the DOJ, that includes the FBI, that includes the DAs. Like in Portland, you see that they're dropping charges left and right. So for me, I think, and I know you know this, Tim, but for people that are listening, it's like what they want to do is invade every single channel in our society, including law enforcement. So it makes sense to me that these things are beginning to unfold in our country, because if they could decimate law enforcement, who gets hurt? The innocent get hurt. But that's what they want to do. My personal opinion, Tim, I don't think they want to get rid of police. I don't think they want to abolish the cops. They want to usher in a new regime.
Right.
They want themselves to be in power. That's what we're starting to see.
That's why I was going to say they're not anarchists. Anarchists, true anarchists, are either going to be like, I can buy that off you, or would you like to come to an agreement as to how we can exchange the value of our labor? That's anarchy. It means without authority. The people who claim to be anarchists, they're not anarchists. They have no idea what they're talking about. These people might say, we want to abolish the police. But what happens when someone confronts them on the street? What happens when these people are filming? There's a video.
911.
Call 911 to help. Call the
Yep.
police. That's
Yeah.
right. They want the cops. There's a video where a guy in his own home has all these Black Lives Matter people yelling and screaming at him. So he brandished a shotgun. He shouldn't have brandished it. He could maybe like have it prepared, but he pointed it out the window. Should have done that. But when the cops show up, they all clap and cheer. Yay! Yay for the police. They want the cops to do their bidding. And guess what? They got it. They won.
Yeah. Everything that they do is an attack on law enforcement, because when you take a look at how things are taking place and unfolding, right? You look at the Ohio shooting, right? Ma'Khia Bryant, you look exactly what took place. You had a white cop that saved the life of a black person, while in the process taking another psychotic black life because she was lunging at another black person at her throat with a
It
knife.
was 2 women.
Right?
She was
There was
attacking
another woman on
2
the floor getting kicked in the head by a black guy, right? So it's like, but here, let me finish my point. My point is, Black Lives Matter has branded the death of black people at the hands of cops, regardless of what the context is. So a lot of people don't understand this, Tim. They're like, well, why don't they talk about black on black crime? FBI statistics under Barack Obama, the first black president in United States history, was skyrocketing through the roof. So is that a product of white supremacy? None of it makes sense. But why don't they talk about black on black crime? Very simple. It doesn't fit the brand. It doesn't attack law enforcement. Every time you talk to an activist in Black Lives Matter, I see this on Twitter all the time. Drew, how could you be so stupid and naive? Are you that dumb? Black Lives Matter is not about black on black crime. It's about police brutality. I'm like, okay, well then let's talk about the facts and the statistics. If that's what you're claiming, they don't add up. I literally had a conversation, Tim, with someone in Minneapolis right after the Chauvin verdict was announced. I asked her, are you guys satisfied? What are your thoughts? And she's like, we're never going to be satisfied. Black Lives Matter forever. And she literally said, we're experiencing a black genocide. Okay? A black genocide in the context of police brutality? Where are the numbers? They don't add up.
No,
but
I think
listen, what people need to understand, Tim, is this. It's not about black lives. It's about decimating law enforcement with the result of destabilizing the United States of America. They're neo-Marxists. That's what they want.
I think the first part about law enforcement is a little reductive, because I think the bigger picture is every cultural institution.
Yeah, all of it.
So
yeah.
CNN's currently undergoing an internal review about the mistreatment of women or whatever. You open up the doors, you let the wolves in. What do you think's going to happen? Now they're getting eaten alive from the inside. It's probably going to rip them apart. The New York Times had already happened. We saw that with Barry Weiss. She left because the wokeness permeates. And I can't remember where this quote was, so correct me if I'm wrong, people listening or watching. That something like an ideology only needs around 10% of the country in order to completely change the government and the culture. Because, look, we've got, on a broader point. So that was a general idea, but the broader point is when you have the law, the 1964 Civil Rights Act, you can't discriminate on the basis of these things. Okay, well, the law's in stone. Now they exploit the law. Oh, you discriminated me and I accuse you because of race. What do? Well, now you're being sued. And the government's going to be like, okay, well, it is illegal. We'll take this up. Most regular people find racism abhorrent. So it becomes a very easy attack vector to manipulate the system and gain power. And then it's really interesting when you see these stories about how the woke try to take over organizations by making all these insane, nonsensical claims you can't do anything about. Because it's like, oh, it's white supremacy. I'm not white. Yeah, but it's the system of white supremacy. But this test that the system we implement was actually founded by a black guy. No. It goes even beyond that. It's a black white supremacist. Like, no matter what you say. Right now they're calling Tim Scott a black white supremacist because they have to use that attack vector. And unfortunately, the real problem is regular people in this country don't care anymore. Demoralization.
Yep.
The average person says, I don't care. Leave me alone.
Yep.
Now that they're demoralized and they don't want to have anything to do with anything, you'll get judges like Cahill in the Chauvin verdict who's like, I could change venues, but then they'll burn my house down, so screw it. Throw them to the wolves. Yep. Better for me. The rest of the country, we don't seem to care.
And we're bowing down to the regime. In my opinion, I think it's racist. That's a controversial thing to say. It's because these cultural Marxists, they always have a villain, right? In historical Marxism, there's always a villain, the people at the top, and there's always the victims. Right now in 2021, they are making the minorities the victims. And who are the villains? White people. That is all you're seeing everywhere in Disney and Nickelodeon, everywhere you see, Tim.
I got to
say this because...
Whoa. Before you move on that point, that's not true.
It is true.
Why they're calling Tim Scott a black white supremacist? They're attacking Candace Owens, people like Tim Scott. It's more about people who believe in American values. They're using white as an attack vector because the majority of the country is white.
But let me finish.
But clearly, when you get Latinos and Asians and black people, they attack them in the exact same way, and it makes no sense.
Let me finish my point. My point was, this is why I said I think it's racist. Because no matter what you do, no matter what you say, they'll always blame it on white people. But the key factor is we have to keep the victims where they are. If you're a person of color, I'm going to use their terminology. If you're Hispanic, if you're black, if you're Candace Owens, if you're Tim Scott, it doesn't matter. We'll call you a white supremacist because the factor is we have to keep you as a victim. That's why I say this is racist as hell. The racists are on the left because they always want to paint someone like me as a damn victim, that I'm always down in the dumps. And Joe Biden stands up after the Chauvin trial verdict and tells the whole world, blacks and browns are living in fear of going to the grocery store. Blacks and browns are in fear going to sleep at night. And I'm sitting there watching the TV, living a great life. I am not a victim, Tim. I will never be a victim. Racism is real. I've experienced racism in my own life. My little sister is a victim of physical assault from an ex-cop who is a white supremacist and a racist. So is my mother, okay? I grew up with this stuff. And I got to say this because I've experienced it, but I'm not the type of woke-tarded left Wookiee that just sits there and says, well, we got to just smear all white people because we will forever be victims. That narrative is coming from an elitist mentality that is telling us that we are victims and we will continue to be victims, and there's nothing we can do to get out of it. Listen, even Black Lives Matter, right? I know it wasn't done right. She's a multimillionaire.
Who?
The co-founder. Right?
What's her name? Patrice
Coolers. Patrice Coolers is a multimillionaire because she's a grifter. She's branded the death of black people. So she's living the high life. Why does the mainstream media have to continue to censor those stories? Because they have to keep the narrative that a black person is still a victim.
There's two things. One, as we've seen with CNN and New York Times and other outlets, they're effectively infiltrated by cult members who want to push the narrative for the sake of pushing the narrative. But at the top, you have the capitalistic interest of we make money when we push this narrative. And if we tell them a counterpoint, we will lose money. I've experienced it firsthand when I worked for Fusion, ABC News, Univision. They said we side with the audience. So if you keep telling people there's something that's true, you keep saying Black Lives Matter, and then one day a story comes out, Ma'Khia Bryant, she got a knife. Well, you can't report that story. It'll piss off the audience you've cultivated. So they don't.
Yeah.
They ignore that.
It doesn't
stuff.
fit the brand.
Exactly.
Minorities, victims, black people could do nothing for themselves. Latinos and Hispanics could do nothing for themselves, to the point of not being able to be educated enough or funded enough to go get an ID to vote.
But
listen, Tim, this is what they say I am in the mainstream media as a person of color. They say I'm too stupid to get an ID, that I'm too poor to get an ID. They tell me that I'm scared to go to sleep at night because I fear cops are going to knock down my door and kill me in my sleep. That's not who I am. And I got to be extremely passionate and aggressive against this because, listen, I've never been someone to say, hey, I'm this Hispanic conservative Latino guy. Follow me. I was telling Lydia this in the car earlier on the way here. That's never been who I am. But now I've come to the point where I'm like, if I don't speak up for myself, these damn Democrats and radical leftists will brand me. They will brand me. They will speak who I am. They will tell me who I am. They will say who I am. They'll say that I'm a victim. They'll say I'm too poor. They'll say that I'm not smart enough. They will brand me and label me these things. And if I don't say anything aggressively, then that's who I will become in the eyes of millions of people. Thank God I have the platform right now to say these things. Listen, let's do a poll. How many people in the chat agree with me right now with what I'm saying? Drop a 1 in the comment section below. If you are sick of these damn politicians branding who we are, let's use their labels as people of color. I'm not stupid, Tim. I'm not too poor. I am successful. I am strong. I am godly. I am someone that could actually do something with my life. And right now, I will never sit here and say, I speak for all people of color. No. I speak for myself. But what I can say is there's a lot of people out there in the country, Tim, that are sick of this victim mentality stuff because that is not who we are as people.
Not enough. Not enough of them.
Not enough.
So yeah, maybe right now you got this platform, but the truth is the people who are watching this show are, most of them, likely watching it because they already agree with you, and that's the problem. So there's a lot of people who watch this show and many shows like it, and they agree and disagree with me on many things, but it's a good conversation. But they know exactly what you're saying. That's why they're here.
But how do people not see that that's racist as hell, Tim?
Because
to sit there and continue to paint minorities as too poor and not smart enough, it's ridiculous.
The issue is
exactly that's my point.
And
people don't realize that they're being lied to. When are people going to wake the hell up? This is a narrative that's causing you to believe something that is racist within itself. How many times are you gonna? How many times?
They don't care, dude.
They gotta care, Tim, because
don't.
I'm getting sick of this happening to our communities. They keep painting us with these stereotypes. It's coming from the left. Listen to Joe Biden. He's literally the person that's peddling these narratives. Kamala Harris, blacks are too poor. Brown people are scared to live in this country. They could do nothing for themselves. That's not true. I can do something for myself. I'm an American. I can do things. People are sick of this garbage. And I just got to be passionate, Tim, because you know what,
I think
people are sick of this stuff, dude. And me, all for one,
I disagree.
These people aren't speaking for me anymore.
I disagree. I think you're mad about it. I think I'm mad about it. I think Ian is. I think Lydia is. I think most people who come on this show are mad about it. And then we've even had some people on this show who just don't care, and they know. People who are more likely on the left, and they're like, yes, so what? And then we get most Americans who just want to fit in. Some who are too stupid, some who are too demoralized, and some who know exactly what's going on, but better to keep your head down than get it chopped off.
Oh, they're cowards.
Absolutely.
They're cowards. These people are cowards because, listen, let's talk about the border right now. These people claim to care about Latinos. They care about Hispanics. They care about us, these politicians. I don't care you're left or right. What's happening at the border is crimes against humanity, okay? Joe Biden called. He's on record running for president. He said we need to immediately surge the border. And in context, he was speaking directly to Central America. This has caused even
he
said we need to immediately surge the border on the debate stage, speaking directly to Central Americans. That's not fake news. That's not out of context. You can find the clip right now. That is exactly what he said. That is who he is. So now we have an influx. The worst numbers we've seen. DHS, Border Patrol, every single one that I've interviewed, they all say the same exact thing. The same exact thing. These are the worst numbers we've seen in the past 20 years. And Joe Biden caused this. The Democrats want this. They're continuing to allow this to happen. The reason why Kamala Harris will not go down to the border is because they know that they want nothing but votes. That's all they want. All these Central Americans are nothing going to be people that are going to be legalized in order to vote for generations to come for people to vote for the Democrat Party. All we are political pawns. They don't care about Latinos. They don't care about Hispanics. They only care about their own political gain. That is who these people are. And there are even Republicans. I know people aren't going to like me saying this, but Republicans take this narrative and they only use it as a talking point to score political points with Latinos that care about this stuff. I'm saying this stuff because this is the reality of what's taking place. We literally, the atrocities are insane, Tim. People coming from Central America because this president caused this. Literally women being raped, literally kids being kidnapped, people that are dying, being murdered by the cartels before they even get to the southern border. And I'm supposed to believe Joe Biden when they say they care about Latinos and Hispanics? No, you don't put people in that kind of position in order for them to get killed and raped and murdered and kidnapped. Not to mention what's taking place with the actual kids at the border. You have kids, you have 3-year-old little babies being chucked off the top of a 14-foot border wall. You have little kids being deserted at the southern border to die by human smugglers with no food, no water, nothing. And I'm supposed to sit here and believe that these politicians care about me and my communities. No, it's garbage.
They never did.
They never did. They never will. But the reason why I'm going to continue to say this, Tim, I know there's always going to be people out there that have never even thought about this stuff. There has to be someone out there that needs to finally open their eyes and see these people are only using us for political gain. They use the color of our skin to gain political points. And then they don't listen to us. All they do is use us for votes. People are sick of it, Tim. They are sick of it. I can assure you the Latino community is getting fed up with this garbage.
It's true.
Because we see it on a daily basis. These are families and kids that we're seeing.
In Florida, a safe blue district went Republican. And we saw the southern counties, southern districts in Texas, which are heavily Latino and Hispanic, switch from Democrat to Republican. And that shocked a lot of the analysts, pollsters, and everybody. Nobody saw that coming.
Because they know. They know.
People
what
on
does
the border?
That tell you? What does that tell you? What does the left tell you? Latinos are so uneducated. They need They need so much help. They're the stupid brown people. We need to coddle them and put these training wheels on them because they can't do anything for themselves. Oh my gosh, the minorities are too. No, we can think for ourselves, and that just proves it. I can vote for myself. I don't need to be told who I need to vote for. I can view the world myself. I can analyze the world myself. I'm smart enough to view this. I'm speaking to a community right now, Tim. I can assure you, Tim, there are people out there that agree with everything that I'm saying right now.
The message from the Democrats is not for you. It's not for Latinos. It's not for black people. It's for uppity, white, well-to-do liberals and progressives. And they're being told by the Democratic Party, you're a superhero. The poor brown people need your help. They don't care about what you think. They're not saying these things to convince you of anything. It's because you have a whole bunch of ultra-white suburban progressive neighborhoods that are super racist, but they have guilty consciences.
Yep.
So now they can bask in the, who was it? George W. Bush who said the soft bigotry of low expectations. Mm-hmm. Now it's the hard bigotry of no expectations, which is they straight up think y'all, I shouldn't even say y'all, because depending on the time of day, they might say the same thing about Asians. They think, oh, the poor minorities. But then the moment you say anything to counter them, they say, you're actually a white supremacist.
Yeah. They don't want us successful because once we become successful, we don't fit their racist narrative anymore. Okay? This is, I'm living this right now. Like I've been saying, people can tell I'm not a victim. I'm successful. I know what I'm doing. But now because I don't fit the narrative, like you said, they'll call you a white supremacist. I was literally called the other day a Mexican white supremacist Russian asset. Huh. Okay, so that's like the new narrative. Listen, all of them all in one, right? So it's like, but they don't realize that they're racists because you guys claim that you want minorities successful. You guys claim that you want us on the same level as white people, which is, in my opinion, a racist kind of like platform to begin with. But okay, I'll give you that. But once I get there, I get censored. I get called a race traitor. I get called a traitor. I get called stupid. I get called, like I said, a Mexican white supremacist Russian asset. So it's interesting because these people claim to care so much about minorities, but the moment a minority starts to get on the next level and begins to speak for himself or herself, they just get shot down. They get told to shut up. So it's like, you people don't care. What I'm trying to say is that's racist within itself, because you are not wanting minorities to progress, because once we do, you destroy us, because if you don't have us down, you have nothing to cure your damn white guilt or whatever your guilt is that you have in your heart. People need Jesus, Tim.
What's the solution when people already seek out information and know these things, and other people just don't want to? Like, I have friends who, the moment you raised your voice, would tell you to screw up and they'd walk away.
Yeah.
They'd say, I don't care, he's a white supremacist.
Because honestly, bro, if you can't get behind...
But they don't care. You don't understand.
No,
we have to stop pretending like the people on the left who are marching with their fists up actually care about any of this. Most of them say outright they are racists. On TikTok, they make videos where they say it. Mm-hmm. So when you go to them and say, this is racist, they go, we know, shut your mouth and get out of my face. And you're not convincing the racists of doing anything because they're racist.
I would bet that for every person that's like, I can't take it, it's too much, 10 people will be like, whoa. Because what you were saying was enlightening. I already knew that stuff, but it was like wiring my brain. It is racist to say that black people have it rough. You're subjugating them by saying that. Well,
that's an oversimplification. To say that they're on a weaker level or unable is racist.
Especially for little kids that hear that. And they're like, you're 3 and 4 and you believe it implicitly. Oh, so I am a victim and I am going to have a hard life. Then you just live a hard life. You seek out your self-fulfilling prophecy.
Think about what the average person who's been told this will do. Let's say you have 2 people. One person is told when they're growing up, no matter what happens to you, it's your fault. No matter what. Take responsibility for literally everything. The other person is told, no matter what happens, it's white supremacy. It's never your fault. What do you think happens when that first person encounters a problem? So I'll give you an example. I was told this when I was growing up. I was late for school. I got a tardy slip or something. Why was I late? There was a train. And I said, it's not my fault. There was a train. You know what my dad said? You know the train tracks are there. You know the trains go there. Why didn't you plan ahead? You should have taken responsibility for the fact that the train tracks are already there. You didn't think, did you? And I was like, I didn't think there was going to be a train. Well, now you know, don't you? So take responsibility for the fact that you did not prepare for the train. Something you knew. Now imagine the other kid showing up. It's not fair because the train came, and it's because the system of this country is white supremacist. So they decided that they could build train tracks through low-income neighborhoods, and that means that poor people are stuck waiting for trains. Now they're not going to do anything to solve their own problems. When people are told it's not your fault and there's nothing you can do about it, then they don't do anything about it. When other people are told maybe it's not your fault, but you need to figure out how to solve the problem, they will. Maybe the answer was, I drive to a mile down till I find the bridge and then, go under or over or whatever. Maybe there's a solution to the problem. Maybe you leave 10 minutes early. Maybe you leave 20 minutes early. But if it's always racism, there's no solution. None. Literally, there can be none. Because right now, this country is majority white. It will be for a long time. So they've created a problem with no solution. So long as they keep telling people this, people will just keep sitting in it. But the bigger point, I suppose, is that the woke leftists, even people I know, even people in my family, my extended family, I see these photos of them marching with their fists up, and I'm like, they don't know what that fist means. They don't know the origin of it. They don't care either. They are vapid, lazy, entitled, and they are only out marching because we're in with the crowd. Hey, this is what my friends are doing. You could ask them any question about police brutality, gun violence. They won't be able to answer it. And then you know what happens? Afterwards, I tell you this, because I've been to these protests. Go to one of these protests and see one of these average people marching. And then once the march is winding down, go up to any one of these people and say, now we're going to go to an office for a charity that deals with actually solving these problems. And you know what they'll say? No. They won't do it. Why? I used to work for nonprofits, fundraising and recruit and trying to find members for organizations. I used to be in these protests, and I can assure you, one of the most annoying things to me was how I realized most of these people are just virtue signaling, marching down the street to post their stupid photo on Facebook so they can pretend to be a good person while they're over consuming and burning the planet to the ground while complaining that you're doing that. They're not doing anything. That's most people. And you know what? These are the same people that go and post videos of themselves voting. And I had friends who were like, here's my ballot. I voted for Biden. Watch me go vote. And they would put it in the mailbox. And I'm like, you're a fan of Biden, huh? Quick, name his policies. And they'd be like, oh. And I was like, as a joke, right? Name all of Biden's policies. How about the one where he created that crime bill? They have no idea. And they say, well, it's not about Biden, but, Donald Trump is pretty bad. Okay, why? Why is he bad? No, for real. I got some opinions on why he's bad. Can you tell me yours? Well, he lies all the time. What do he lie about? Dude, come on. He lies. I'm like, what do you lie about? Come on. Are you just repeating what you heard on the TV? You saw a post on Facebook. You have no idea what you're talking about. Stop wasting my time. And so now we have a whole bunch of people who don't care about civics, who don't care about community, who don't care about this country. And everything's just crumbling down around them. And the main problem is we as a country have already been demoralized. Yeah. There is no sense of country. There is no sense of community. No one is fighting for one another. They're fighting for money. And if the money ain't there, they ain't going to do it. That's it.
Some people are. I think that, but when it comes to demoralization, it wouldn't be like a 1 or a 0. There's a sliding scale. Like how moralized are you right now? 65%? How moralized were you yesterday? 64%? Yeah. I don't know.
I think that's part of why what we do is important, having these conversations and showing people that they're not alone. I think that's pivotal for keeping up morale. That's essential for this battle that we're going into. I do think the demoralization is deep. I don't personally see a direct way out, but I do know that one of the best ways to get there is by having this kind of conversation.
Let's talk about the extreme levels of demoralization. Ladies and gentlemen, from Kiro 7, Seattle, over 200 Seattle police officers quit amid national protests. And bravo to each and every one of these officers who have quit the department and won't be party to the corrupt system anymore. And I know we're talking about demoralization, the system falling apart, but at a certain point, you need to stop propping up the broken system. Part of the demoralization exists because these people who march to the street with their fists in the air have never had to deal with any real problems because they just call the police. Police do it for them. They don't actually know or care about the police. Most of these people in these big cities never interact with police, but they hate them. It's remarkable. You ever actually talk to one of these guys about their job? No. But I hate them. Great. Well, over in Seattle, they say SPD said more than 200 officers have left their jobs since last year. The departing officers have cited what they call as anti-police climate in Seattle. The city council police policies and disagreements with police department leadership. Police Chief Adrian Diaz said Tuesday that the department is in what he called a staffing crisis. It's funny. It's a story originally by the AP, but not too far away from here. I think it's Hagerstown. They're in a police shortage as well, crisis. Mm-hmm. We also have Louisville in serious crisis. Everywhere across the country, serious crisis. But you know what? I'm glad the cops are leaving. These people who live in these cities who march around and just don't care at all. They're virtue signaling every day. So let me clarify my position for those that may not have heard it, because many of you probably have, but just very quickly. Before the election, it was very much, guys, we need cops. We can have reform. We can get better training and better specialties, but we need a police department. And I understand if there are things we can change, we should. I don't like it when cops enforce unconstitutional laws, but I've lived in big cities. I know what happens when you don't have cops and you have no one to call. And I don't know. I don't think anybody really wants that. Okay. We made our arguments. We watched cities burn. We watched buildings in cities burn so that Fox, Juan Williams doesn't get mad at me. Many buildings were destroyed. Many businesses will never come back, and even in small towns. Then the election happened, and the people decided, you know what? I don't care about the riots. You know why? Because for the most part, the cops were there beating people up. So I'm going to vote for Democrats. The people who actually supported the riots, bailed them out, encouraged more. Now the election is over, and there are cops who, in the previous story we just talked about, the feds were planning on arresting Chauvin if he was acquitted. Literally, if the jury was like, he is not guilty of this crime, they'd be like, arrest him anyway. The cops who are remaining are propping all of that up because these people who virtue signal can only sit back like lazy Wall-E characters sitting in their hover chairs, morbidly obese. They can only do that because they know the cops are going to clean up their mess. Yep. So if you want to be a cop in this climate where you could potentially go to prison, or how about that cop who mocked LeBron James, who gets suspended without pay, according to his friend? His friend says so. So we'll see how that story comes out. The police are saying, well, he shouldn't have done that. You want to be a cop in this environment? You want to prop up the corrupt politicians who I guarantee you will call you begging for help the moment Antifa shows up at their house. You want them to feel safe. Great. I'll tell you what, when you resign, Who do you think Nancy Pelosi is going to call when Antifa shows up to her house again? They're going to call the police. What do we do? Sorry, ma'am, there's no cops here anymore. Remember how you, as a Democrat, wanted to defund and rallied people against them? What do you think is going to happen in Maxine Waters' district? She's the one who came out and told everybody that if you see someone from Trump's administration, you get in their face, you confront them. And then people did. What do you think she's going to do when Antifa shows up to her house and she calls and says, I need the police? Ma'am, you led riots against the police. There's no one to come.
With police protection.
Right. And then you see
She was
LeBron
literally
James.
on the ground.
Imagine this. I love this. LeBron James. There's a photo of him in New York, and he's got all these NYPD guys guarding him. You want to know what's really funny? Those cops who protect. I'll tell you this. There's two groups of cops in New York. The cops who protect LeBron from this point forward, because that photo's probably old. The most pathetic, sniveling, groveling, spineless losers. If I was a cop and I got a call and said, hey, we got LeBron James coming in, can you guard him? I'd be like, no. Nice try, dude. He's on his own. He doesn't want our help. What's going to happen? Someone's going to pull out a knife. I'm going to try and save him. And he's going to get mad at me? Not going to happen. But then you had these cops in New York who were guarding the Black Lives Matter mural. Now, I love this. You know why? The mural was illegal. It was literally a crime to paint the street. De Blasio did it without a permit, using taxpayer dollars, and then put 27 cops to guard it.
Yeah.
And people were protesting and throwing paint on it, and the cops would arrest them like sniveling little losers. Imagine being as spineless and pathetic as any one of those cops in New York who's standing there half slouched where the mayor is smack talking you to your face in front of everybody, and then you're just like, thank you, de Blasio, I'll guard this for you now. Wow, it's like Randall from Recess, that little kid who's always with Miss Finster, and he's like, Miss Finster, grow a spine, be an adult, stand up for yourself. It was disgusting to see cops literally arresting protesters to defend something that was spitting in their face. You got to be a special kind of pathetic loser to get slapped around nonstop by corrupt politicians and then still agree to clean up their mess and protect them from the mess they created. This is what bothers me the most. When Kamala Harris supports the riots by soliciting funds to bail these people out in Minnesota, ongoing riots for a year, and then the cops are like, I'm going to protect her after that. Where is any one of these people with principle? They don't exist. So I'll tell you what really scares me. The cops that are leaving are the good cops. The ones who are saying, I'm not going to defend these corrupt politicians, these celebrities. And the ones that are remaining are like the cops that remain on the force overwhelmingly, not every single one. There's probably other reasons, but overwhelmingly, as I said the other day, are the guys who are going to sell out their own mothers for cash. They don't care about community. They don't care about this country. They don't care about the Constitution. They just care about money. And not even a lot of it either. I mean, man, if you were going to be a pathetic loser, there's so many other jobs that would pay better than licking the boots of Bill de Blasio. But I guess it tastes good. So, good for them.
I think that's by design, man. I think what these guys are, Black Lives Matter and Antifa, their whole goal and narrative is to demonize cops, right? So I think when they accomplish this, I think that's part of what they're attempting to do. Like, no matter what they do, they want to prove that cops are bad. So you get conservatives, right? You get these back the blue people that view stuff like that, what you're describing, right? They see cops defending Black Lives Matter. What does that do? That paints in the mind of that individual that, wow, these cops are horrible. That, in my opinion, I think that further pushes their agenda and their narrative, because when you see those optics on TV and people are experiencing this stuff, it further demonizes police officers, even if they're good cops. So honestly, I think Antifa and Black Lives Matter do that kind of stuff on purpose, because the optics of that brings you to a conclusion to what you literally just said to a lot of people that don't realize that that's by design. I would be willing to bet that that's by design.
I'm in favor of abolishing the police at this point. Not for the leftist reasons where they're screaming racism or whatever, but because right now as it stands, if a leftist extremist gets arrested, the DA will say, sorry about that, buddy. I'm so sorry the cop arrested you. You can go home now. No charges. And then you so much as fart and you get arrested, and the DA is going to be like, oh, I'm going to lock you up and throw away the key. So the cops are like, I'm just a neutral enforcer of the law. I arrest Antifa and I arrest the people on the right too. And the people on the right go to jail and get solitary confinement. And the people on the left get let out and do it again. The cops, it's the banality of evil. Shuffling, I'll put it this way. Someone exercising their constitutional right to keep and bear arms in a state like New Jersey. Those cops with a smile on their face will lock you up in 2 seconds. And the DA will laugh as they bang the gavel and say, shut your mouth, you're going to prison because you can't bear arms in New Jersey. You literally cannot bear arms in New Jersey, period. This is a state where they say you have to have a qualifying reason to be able to bear arms. So pretty sure the right to bear arms has already been infringed. Now you can keep them if you go through a process and they're in your home and they're, in a safe. And if someone breaks into your home, you run away, but you can't run away with the gun because you can't bring the gun outside. So if you're in your house in New Jersey and someone breaks in, don't grab the gun, run away because you're legally required to. Think about the logic there. No joke. In New Jersey, you have to retreat from your own home. So what's the point of having the gun? You can't. So here's what happens. How do you go to prison if you're bearing arms in New Jersey? It is a police officer who will gleefully arrest you, and it's happened. It happens to a lot of people. A lot of good law-abiding citizens simply make a mistake. One story I was told is that in Pennsylvania, you could bear arms. And if you live in Philly, the New Jersey side is literally a 5-minute drive. What happens if you take the wrong ramp? What happens if you're in Philadelphia with your legal gun and you take the wrong exit and you go, oh no, I'm crossing into New Jersey. It was an accident. I don't want to be here. And then you pull off the bridge and you get pulled over and they say, hey, too bad. That cop's going to smile as you get a felony and go to prison or have your life destroyed. They will smile. And you know what? I'm sure they'll smile as they arrest Antifa. And the Antifa will get the charges dropped and they'll get let go. And then you'll get to go to prison. So at this point, I'm just like, the remaining cops are not good cops. I'd rather be responsible for myself. If Antifa can burn down buildings across this country and get away with it, I need to defend myself. And that's why I started buying weapons to protect my home and myself, as is my constitutional right. And the last thing I need is a cop who can't enforce Antifa, but will gladly lock me up if I try to exercise my rights in the wrong place.
It sounds like it's more a problem with the DAs because the cops are just impartially arresting criminals, whoever, whether you agree with the crime or not. But then the DAs are letting these people go. So it's putting the cops in a bad place.
The cops are the ones who are enforcing it.
Well, they're just
the DA isn't showing up at my house and threatening to arrest me.
No, the DA is letting the criminals go.
Right. Yeah. So if there were no cops enforcing unconstitutional laws, we wouldn't have to worry about it. The DA would sit there crying with no support. But wielding the power of law enforcement allows them to selectively enforce political ideologies, and they're doing it. So last year, the argument was stand up for the police and vote. When that didn't work, at this point, the cops are clearly just getting good citizens arrested and charged, and Antifa is getting let go. Not just Antifa, but extremists on the left, Black Lives Matter. We had in Portland, I think, there were like 4 people charged with felonies, and the feds charged them. And the moment Joe Biden gets in, all charges dropped. And there's only so then you look at what's going on with Proud Boys or whatever they get arrested, or Kyle Rittenhouse, or Chauvin. I think the Chauvin thing's hilarious because he is a cop. But you look at Kim Potter. So long as the police are willing to enforce this, they need to wake up and realize they may be neutral enforcers of the law, but after the arrest, the DA is a political actor who will let their friends go and lock up anyone who opposes them. And it's only possible because cops are doing it. I tell you what, I'm done with it. The cops were unable to stop the riots. I'd rather defend myself. Y'all can go home now. To all of these cops who are resigning, these guys are good people. They're good cops. They're respectable. They're refusing to suffer the indignity, and they're refusing to lick the boots of these corrupt politicians. But the ones who remain, these people are crooked as they come. No principles. They care not for their community. They would stand there guarding an illegal mural painted with taxpayer dollars without the approval of the taxpayer and arrest people who challenged it.
It's too. I think it's too extreme to make judgments on who they are, because you might have trash humans resigning from the police department right now.
Yeah, it's a generality.
Amazing people staying on the force with limited options or some altruistic motive.
Ian, if I told you, like, if someone came to you and they were like, you have to brutally, mercilessly beat a child, otherwise you have to be homeless, which would you pick?
Oh my God, I'm not beating a kid.
So what if they said you have to? Here's an old woman who has a 9mm in her purse. You have to lock her up for 4 years in a state penitentiary, otherwise you're homeless. Pick one.
Well, the cop doesn't decide how long she gets locked up. The
There's
cop
mandatory
just says
minimums.
Transports her to the courthouse, basically. That's
Yeah.
the cop's job.
So let's see. You encounter a woman. She's 65. She's got a little snub nose in her purse, and you, as the cop, are told either you are losing your job, or you're going to bring this woman in, and she will go to prison. Pick one.
You got to bring her in.
Why do you have to bring a woman? Why?
If she violated the law and you're a cop,
I thought the Constitution was the supreme law of the land.
well, that's a confusing thing. Whether it's a state law
Do
or
you
a federal
think
law.
a 65-year-old woman with a revolver in her purse should go to prison for 4 years?
It's just a vague statement.
Do
it depends
you
on where she
think-
is, man.
Minding her own business, going to an ATM from her apartment.
What
She's
state?
scared.
Is it legal? I don't know.
No, it's
just
illegal. Let's say
It's illegal.
Let's say it's a 65-year-old woman in Chicago, and she knows there's a high gang crime and people are shooting each other. She needs to go to the ATM. She's worried, so she gets a gun. She's walking down. She robs nobody. She doesn't want to commit a crime. Never committed a crime in her life. Should she go to prison?
I don't know. That's for the courts to decide.
You don't know?
No, that's for the courts to decide whether she gets let off or put in jail, in prison.
The answer
as
is
a cop,
she
that's
should
not
not.
my decision. They're not the jury. They're not the.
I think-
arbiter.
Ian, this is why I called you evil before, remember? I said, yes, I called you evil. This is the banality of evil. The idea that a 65-year-old woman who is not a criminal, who is scared of gang violence, wants to protect herself, and is walking to an ATM, I don't know if she should be locked up for 4 years. She shouldn't be. Why should she be? What did she do? Nothing.
That's why we have courts to decide that stuff.
I don't think that Ian is evil. I think that Ian is a relativist, which comes out to be a little bit of a problem if you're doing something like being a cop. Because the fact of the matter is that you can be a neutral arbiter of a law, but if the law is bad, you become a force of bad. I'm sorry, that's how it works.
Okay, Ian, there's an old woman and she's got a bag of weed in her purse. Should she go to prison?
Depends on where she is.
In Chicago.
I don't know. What's the laws, man?
It's illegal.
Well, the whole go to prison thing is up to the court to decide.
There are mandatory drug minimums in Illinois.
That's
Should an
extreme.
old lady who has a small amount, I think they decriminalized, but should a person who wants to imbibe a psychedelic go to prison for choosing to do so? The answer is no.
I don't think.
Unequivocally, no.
I don't agree with those laws, but they are the laws. So we have to change the laws to stop putting the pressure on the cop. Cop has every right not to enforce a law, but you got to be careful with that if you're a cop.
Cops can say, go home, kid.
Yeah.
Ma'am, you can't have that. You got to get rid of it. You can submit it to the police station. You can turn it in, but you can't have it because someone else will lock you up.
But probably if you.
How about when the cop in New Jersey stopped the woman who crossed the bridge, because this is a story I was told at one of the gun shops out there, instead of arresting her and getting her and processing her and then her getting charged with the felony, he could have said, ma'am, I'm going to give you an escort back to the on-ramp to go across that bridge back to Pennsylvania. You can't bring that weapon into the state. Does that sound okay? Okay, ma'am, please, let's go. Instead, what did he say? You're under arrest. I gotcha. And then he brought her to the station, and she gets to go to prison. Why? Because she crossed the bridge. Amazing. That is the banality. I mean, that's outright evil. The banality of evil is when a cop is like, I don't care about the Constitution. I don't care about morals or principles. I just think, who cares? You get arrested.
Let me jump in this, okay? So I just want to speak to police officers right now and just give you like a real quick biblical perspective. You know, we're living under an unrighteous government that is facilitating and enabling pure lawlessness on a grand scale, regardless of whatever state you find yourself in. You know, the biblical mandate for a police officer is literally in Romans chapter 12, God's avenger that is mandated to execute righteous judgment or justice upon evildoers. So what I want people to understand and think about right now, especially if you're a police officer, you're going to have to really make a decision. And I know this is a lot easier said than done. And I'm just giving you some kind of like pastoral counsel right now. You guys know what I'm talking about. You're going to have to make a decision right now whether you are going to be a vessel of lawlessness and execute unrighteousness under an unrighteous, lawless government, because that is what you are literally becoming. That's where America is, because they're not executing righteous judgment. Or you're going to have to make a decision and walk away from what this system literally is right now. And like I said, I know that's a lot easier said than done. You're thinking about your family, you're thinking about your future, you're thinking about your kids' schools, you're thinking about your reputation. But I got to be honest with you, man, like in terms of what God has called you to be and to do, you are now heading in a direction where you are not God's avenger of executing righteous judgment on evildoers. You're actually becoming the opposite. you're actually becoming the evildoer to execute unrighteousness on the innocent. So I say this to say this is you're going to have to make that decision as to what you want to be a part of and what you become right now in 2021 moving forward, because right now things are not getting any better, and you're going to have to make some serious sacrifices and really, you know, place your faith in where God really wants you to be. Because I mean, how do you want your kids to view you? How do you want your legacy to become? Because right now, I'm going to be honest, this is what separates me, Tim, from a lot of other conservatives, like in the movement. I am not a 100% back the blue guy. These people hate me for this. I get all kinds of messages. The hell's the matter with you? What do you mean? That's what we believe. I'm like, no. Because when you end up in a police state, who the hell is the police, right? Those are my views. Like for me, Tim, I agree with you, right? I agree with you with what you're saying. But what I want to add to that is police officers have to make a choice. I agree with you with what you're saying.
Ian, let me ask you a question. You said that it depends on what the law is, right? The cop should just follow the law?
Well, no, the cop has a moral judgment call to make.
Oh, okay. So now you're saying the cop shouldn't just lock up an old woman who didn't commit it.
Well, I didn't say he should or shouldn't. It depends on the situation. I mean, that one
I
story
asked
you
you
had is a vague.
I asked you a specific instance.
An
old woman going to an ATM in Chicago. She's scared
with
of
a
gang
gun.
violence, and so she buys a gun and she has it with her.
The cop, you know, it's up to
Should
the
she
cop.
go to prison?
I don't know, man. That's up to the cop, really.
Would you arrest
To take her,
the
not
woman?
to prison, but to take her to jail. That would be a cop's
You know
idea.
she's going to prison. Like, you can't pass the buck. You know she's going to prison. So would you do it? Would you arrest her for that?
I would resign as a cop immediately if I was a cop. Right
That's the point.
Yeah, that's
I'm
the
not.
point.
I'm not.
That's the point.
I'm not a kind of.
You know,
person,
you
though.
know
I'm
how,
not a cop.
because you know what the point is? Loading Jews onto trains was the law. And there were a lot of people who didn't know what they were doing, but it was the law. They had to do it. It is the obligation of our cops, our military, to defy unlawful orders. Now, we talked about this the other day. The challenge is, what if you don't know what the end result is? Now you've got a moral challenge. That's why I think the National Guard and the military would probably just follow the orders they're given because they don't know the full context.
Yeah.
And they can't. But when it comes to a cop who's looking at a young person who's got a small amount of drugs or some sort, and they think to themselves, I'm going to arrest this person. They know what comes next. They're not making these people's lives better. Now, for the most part, look, drugs are illegal, and I'm not a big fan. I do think the war on drugs is bad, but specifically around the right to defend ourselves right now is my issue. The police are trying to arrest these people. They almost always get let go. And I'll give you one more. In D.C., in 2017, several hundred people got arrested all at the same time. I was in that group. I got released because I was calm and polite, talked to the cops, showed them my press ID. Eventually, they pulled me out, let me go. Not only did these people get their charges dropped, they then sued the city after running around, smashing windows and setting fires, and they won a massive lawsuit. The taxpayer is now paying the people who set garbage on fire, set an immigrant's limousine on fire, which he didn't own, it was leased, and they smashed up windows in buildings, got arrested, but they know the tactics and the strategies. So they said the government didn't know how to charge the individuals, they couldn't. So they get their charges dropped, and then they turned around and sued the city and won. Sued the government and won. So my problem right now is, it doesn't matter what you think the cops should or shouldn't be doing. It doesn't matter what I think. What matters is, at the political level, the judges, the mayors, and at the federal level are controlled by the cult, by the cathedral, and any cop who stands there saying, I'm just a neutral arbiter of the law, you are handing people over to the cult. So at this point, I'm like, whatever, abolish the police, I guess. At least then, maybe people in this country will start taking responsibility for their own lives and security, and the virtue signalers who prance around not caring about what's going on might be shocked into waking up, because right now they're just frogs boiling in a pot. But if all the cops walked off, then you'd have these people I know in the suburbs of Chicago making a phone call saying, hey, help, something's happening outside my house, I need help. Ma'am, there's no cops anymore, we abolished them. Where were you? You were supporting this. But I do have some good news. I'm not just going to be constantly negative because we got news. Ladies and gentlemen, this one's big. From ABC, this is interesting. This is from ABC 17 Fox 22, both at the same time. There you go. Minnesota man sentenced to 4 years in prison for role in setting ablaze a Minneapolis police precinct during Floyd protests. They say Dylan Shakespeare Robinson, 23, pleaded guilty in December to 1 count of conspiracy to commit arson for taking part in setting a police precinct in Minneapolis on fire on May 28th. days after Floyd was pinned down, and we know the story. Robinson was sentenced Wednesday to 4 years in prison and 2 years of supervised release, according to a news release from the District of Minnesota's U.S. Attorney's Office. He was also ordered to pay $12 million in restitution. Robinson's attorney has not responded to CNN's request for comment, so I guess it's a CNN story. You want to know why this story is funny?
Because he only got 4 years.
But you want to know why he got any time at all? Because he burned down the police station. That's right. Because when push comes to shove, the system will protect itself and not you. What about the people who burned down the sports bar? What about the people who threatened the guy in his home? And this is in Portland, a guy, he's got an American flag at his house. They go up to his house and start chanting, just random guy. And they start yelling, take the flag down or we'll burn your house down. No charges there. People in D.C., they actually got paid for it. So,
You know this guy's he's a local celebrity. You know that, right?
Oh, they love him.
Yeah.
He's going to be a political prisoner. He's going to be a hero.
No, when I was in Minneapolis a couple weeks ago, and specifically Black Lives Matter, because sometimes people throw BLM like very loosely. This was BLM in Minneapolis. One of the activists, one of the leaders, got up and was like, "You all know that some of these they're facing charges of arson because they burnt down that police station last year." She's like, "Yeah, you guys all remember that?" She's like, that stuff was effing epic. They love it.
So what do you think happens?
He's a celebrity.
In 4 or 5 years. Okay, so maybe Trump is talking about running again in 2024. Mm-hmm. I don't think Trump's got the gumption to actually get the job done. I don't. I think a lot of people thought he was a fighter. Turns out not really. I mean, it's better than Biden. It's better to have someone who's resisting the system than supporting it. But I don't even think Trump's got what it takes. Maybe Ron DeSantis does. But what do you think happens if Trump doesn't win? If they continue to gain more and more power? This guy's going to get out. And when he walks out, there's going to be local politicians clapping and cheering. They already voted to abolish the police. It kind of backfired. Now they're desperate for cops. Mm-hmm. But what do you think happens if this ideology keeps persisting, a slow boil? By the time this guy in 4 years is getting out of jail, the local mayor is going to be like, "You're a hero, and we're so sorry that you were a political prisoner." He'll get released.
I think because what the mainstream media has done is this is why you see this on CNN, MSNBC, ABC. They'll always call them either peaceful protesters or they'll call them just protesters, right? Protests erupt after the shooting of Dante Wright, right? Every single black person that gets shot, protests. Even Fox will say this: protests erupt, protest,
and they'll show a picture of like a building burning down,
right? Yeah, but listen to my theory on this. If you're constantly putting the narrative out that these are protesters,
darn. Looks like you flunked
whenever the
out.
headline comes out the next day that 100 people got arrested, that sounds horrible.
Right.
100 protesters got arrested last night for what? Expressing their First Amendment right of freedom of speech and to peacefully protest, right? That's just the narrative, but it works because nobody wants their name attached to the headline the next morning. No mayor, no DA, no police department. Nobody wants that headline the next morning saying 100 protesters got arrested last night for expressing their First Amendment right. Nobody wants that, but that's the propaganda. But that's why, in my opinion, it works. That's why they get away with rioting. They get glorified when they burn down a building. Antifa's continuing to burn down police union buildings with people in it.
The only reason, or I should say one of the strongest reasons, one of the main reasons
thought I'd miss the
that
library.
people in major urban metros keep voting Democrat is because the cops are propping the system up. Mm-hmm. What do you think? What happened when they voted to abolish the police in Minneapolis? Crime skyrocketed and locals started panicking, calling their city councilmen, being like, "What's happening? Where are the police? Why is this happening?" And then all of a sudden, these pro-abolish the police people come back and say, we need our cops back. Our constituents are freaking out.
Did the Portland cops just all 200 resign like today?
Seattle.
Or was that Seattle?
Over the past several months.
Okay.
So imagine what would happen if the remaining cops were like, "You're on your own."
This is what I was talking about with Lydia on the drive here from the airport is I think there are times in history where you're either going to learn from data, facts, knowledge, wisdom, and make your decisions from there, or you're going to have to learn through experience. So I think right now America is so spoiled, so self-entitled, where socialism is and communism are like glorified ideas, but we have no idea what it feels like to live under something like that. I think right now we are going in a direction, Tim, where as a Christian, I believe we're either going to experience some kind of spiritual revival. People are going to come to Christ and things are going to change. Or I think we'll probably have some kind of civil war. People are going to push back and say enough is enough. We're fed up with the communists. Get out of here, right? Or I think we're just going to have to continue going down this path. People are going to keep voting blue. People are going to keep supporting these radicals. People are going to keep virtue signaling, bowing down to Black Lives Matter and Antifa, right? And we're just going to have to get burnt. Because I think right now the country is going in the direction, like you said, Minneapolis, like, abolish the police. Oh,
study habits.
maybe that wasn't such a good idea. You know, like, so I think on a grand scale, that's where we're going, where I think we're going to have to watch the Republic fall in order for us to pick up the pieces again and just say,
That's
look,
what they
we
want.
were, I know that's what they, I trust me.
That
I
was
know.
their mission. The whole time.
That's their mission. That's their goal. But people don't realize that. Like you said, like you were telling me earlier, people aren't listening. They just don't care. It's like, okay, well, you're gonna care when these people are knocking down your damn door at night when they want to take your life and call you a white supremacist. But like I said, I think we're going down that path where it's just gonna have to get to that point where people feel it. They feel what these ideas do, and until you get there, you're not gonna really understand.
So as long as the cops are still around to answer calls for the uppity white progressives who are leading the charge and making all this bad stuff happen, the same people who say abolish the police are the ones who yell,
There
call
has to be an
911 when
answer
they're
here.
threatened. And then who suffers? The poor, the minority neighborhoods, the ones who, according to Gallup, are saying they want more cops but won't stand up and actually ask for them. I'll tell you this. Here's a simple compromise. If you're a cop, just don't answer any calls to these uppity progressive areas. If you get one of these, wealthy liberal areas saying, help, someone's breaking into my house, I'll be like, well, do you have a gun? No.
Man,
geez.
I was
luck, I guess.
I was talking about this with some of my buddies in Minneapolis, and I was just like, I don't know if I would say this out loud, but I'm gonna say it out loud. Would it have been better for Derek Chauvin to just let George Floyd go?
Yes.
Well, we don't know, because if he was really high on fentanyl and he was getting behind the wheel of a car, he might have killed a
Yeah,
family.
that's true too.
But I understand
Well,
that,
well,
right?
well,
Like
well,
there's so many things that could go wrong, and a cop is obligated to think about that, right? But what I'm trying to say is I think cops are starting to ask themselves, was that even worth it? I mean, I am going to lose my life. I'm going to lose my family. I am going to lose everything over a guy that had a $20 counterfeit bill, and it led to the FBI going to come at FBI was going to arrest me no matter
Everyone-
what.
Everyone
Something
agrees on it at
useful.
this point.
Yeah.
Well, I should say for the most part. The left has been saying that the whole time. Who cares? There's a $20 bill. Let him go. But there's a bigger issue. The guy was doing drugs behind the wheel of a vehicle. And now you've got some serious questions about, like Ian said, what if he hit somebody?
No,
I mean,
I agree. I agree with that. Like,
especially
the way that I
considering-
think, that's the first thing where my mind goes to. You have a fentanyl addict that could get loose in the community, and he could literally wreck havoc, right?
But it would have been objectively better for the cops not to have responded, and from this point on, not to respond at all.
Yikes.
That's what I think people are asking themselves, and it's like I personally think the answer to that question is no. But I'm just putting that question out because I think that's what a lot of cops are beginning to ask themselves, and it's just another subversion of law and order. But it's such a crazy situation, because another thing that I wanted to point out, and I want people to understand, is all you hear from Black Lives Matter is that George Floyd died because he was black. Okay, even the head of the prosecution went on 60 Minutes the other night and literally claimed that this was not a hate crime, that they had zero evidence to prove that George Floyd was targeted because of the color of his skin. This is part of the propaganda that is leading to people burning down buildings, okay, committing mass looting, mass arson. That's all you hear, Tim. You know what I'm talking about. Whenever you're at a BLM rally or Antifa direct action, black people getting hunted, black people getting shot, black people are dying at the hands of police officers. It's a fact. It's a fact. The prosecution admitted George Floyd did not die because of the color of his skin.
Keith Ellison said it. Why
Ellison,
wasn't he charged with the
head
hate
of the
crime?
prosecution?
There was no evidence it was a hate
There was
crime.
no evidence.
Yeah, well,
But look where we are.
right. That's what I'm saying.
Abolishing
It doesn't
police,
matter, does it?
burning down buildings, rioting, causing over $2 billion of damage in 2020 alone over a lie.
Drew, I honestly am starting to think that what happened in Minneapolis needs to happen to every city where these ugly white progressives are calling to abolish the police. You should have that moment of fear where you need to call the police and nothing happens.
Yeah, I don't want riots. I don't want buildings being burned. I just want people to, like, they'll see someone walking through their neighborhood and they'll call the police, and the cops are going to be like, good luck.
Yeah, that would be good if everyone had to psychologically experience the trauma of not having police. But my fear, I love the idea of police and military refusing to serve a corrupt regime. That I love that idea.
Me too.
But what terrifies me if all the police vanish tomorrow and all these private cops and federal cops come in to fill the void, and it's worse than it was before.
Why would it be worse?
Because private cops don't have to adhere to the city.
Okay,
They
so
still have to adhere to the law.
It's supposed to, yeah.
Ian, the cops that we have right now, people who are serving out bad laws, people who are doing unethical things, are essentially mercenaries. So you want to talk about someone who's paid to do something that's not moral, not ethical, and bats not a single eye when they're asked to do something like arrest a little tiny old lady?
I think, Ian, you're wrong, because if someone calls Police Hut, I'll call, Policies Junior.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll have my
Police Hut? Is that what you
But
said?
you're
Yeah.
2 months
Police
behind on your Policey Junior bill, so...
Oh, I won't be.
Yeah, no.
Well, yeah,
I
but
won't
they
be.
might be.
Tim's
So,
on
so,
it.
so a lot of people are talking. I see a lot of comments where people are saying there will be a vacuum of power without the police department. Do you live in a big Democrat urban metro? Well, then I'll tell you this: you shouldn't. I left. We all left. We were in the Philadelphia area, and I was like, man, I see where this is going. I'm out. Am I really that worried about a power vacuum in the middle of nowhere where there's already no power structure other than people in their own homes on large multi-acre properties who are armed to the teeth? Ain't got nothing to worry about out here. Good luck coming to West Virginia and having a go with a riot in one of these neighborhoods. These people who live in West Virginia, there's Facebook group chats, there's text chats, and the moment they don't call the cops, they just text the group. They're like, hey, I saw somebody. Keep your eyes on the, on the lookout. Some of these people scare me. They're like, oh man, the cities are so lucky. Can't wait for these people to come out here. I'm like, nah, you don't want to say that, dude.
No,
That's
no.
freaky. We don't want that. But I'm not worried. No, I'm not worried in the least bit. We don't have a police station out here in the same way a city does. We're in a place where you call the cops. We'll be there in what, an hour? I mean, that might be true in the cities too, by the way, because cities, I don't know, they're pretty crummy in a lot of ways. So power vacuum in the city. Well, the people who voted for this and keep voting for Democrats, hey, that's on them. If you think there's going to be a power vacuum filled by a bunch of corrupt private cops, gangs, and woke police, do you live there? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people do, and they're probably freaked out by this. But at a certain point, take responsibility and get out. I mean, look, like I've been saying, your house is on fire. Now, we all fought very hard to reject that fire and shut it down. Now it's clear the fire is engulfing your house. Now you need to go outside. Oh, but it's cold outside. I know. But what about my family? They'll freeze. That's true, but they'll burn to death if you stay inside. So maybe it's already to that point where all these cops are leaving. Crime is already skyrocketing. You want to tell me there's a power vacuum? Have you been paying attention to the crime rates in all major cities across the country? Shootings are up like 250% or something in New York. Why are you still there? Well, look, if your house is on fire, no one's coming to save you. You got to save yourself. Maybe that's the point about these people living in these cities. For everybody else who kind of lives outside the cities or in the middle of nowhere, what are you worried about? Or get out of the blue states at the very least. Stop living in places where they put their boot on your neck and let criminals run rampant.
I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Is I think police officers have to make a choice. You have a constitutional oath to protect and to serve the communities that you work under. And I think it goes back to also like the leadership. If the leadership is setting you up to fail miserably to the point where you can't even protect yourself in some cases, you look at Portland. I'm in contact with Portland PD on a daily basis almost. And they always tell me, the mayor is in control of all of this. We get our hands tied behind our back. We can't even use the type of riot training that we've been trained to use to stop these people. And then you see the footage and it's just cops getting milkshaked, just humiliated, the psychological abuse that goes into that as well. I talk to them. This is what they tell me. They live in fear. They fear their lives. They fear Antifa finding out where they live. But the point I'm trying to make is I think Tim, is what these police officers do have to sincerely consider. Am I walking into a profession where I'm being set up to fail now? I think anyone would be like, I'm not going to work for that.
I don't care about these cops in Portland. I saw the video of the Blue Lives Matter people getting shoved by cops while they protected Antifa who had pepper spray. Mm-hmm. You think I'm going to give any sympathy to the guys who are shutting down small businesses, arresting a guy for handing out a beer, or shoving and pushing the peaceful right-wing protesters who actually support the police? Nah, that's the problem. The DA will throw the book at someone on the right, and they'll let someone on the left go with no charges, and the cops will arrest both and say, don't look at me.
That's what I'm
So
saying.
Antifa goes around throwing fire bombs, setting fires, and then when the right-wing group shows up, the cops form a line, hold their batons out, start shoving them and yelling. And it was funny to see the look on the face of these conservatives like, why are we being attacked by cops?
Yeah.
And then taking the Blue Lives Matter flag, throwing it in the dirt and stomping on it.
Yeah, and I agree. That's why like I told you, a lot of conservatives don't like me when I talk like this, because I'm not 100% back to blue. Because I don't support crooked cops. I don't support unconstitutional cops. I support cops that support their constitutional oath, and they actually protect and serve the communities. If that's not what you're doing, you need to resign like tonight, because that's what you have been called to do. That's what you've been hired to do. And if you are being put in a position where you cannot do that, then I know this is a lot easier said than done. You got to really reconsider if this is the profession that you want, because now we live in a generation where lawlessness is now abounding. That means that you have to be a crooked cop to survive now. It's a pretty radical thing to have to swallow, but that's where we are.
The media is lying. Antifa's not real. The politicians, it's just an idea. And the district attorneys, you're free to go. All of this is only possible because cops are protecting those who keep pushing for it. Plain and simple. It is the uppity white progressives in big cities who are voting in the Democrats, giving them this power, and they're only able to do it because cops are standing guard while Antifa burns down minority neighborhoods and poor neighborhoods.
Yeah.
It's like that funny tweet from that guy who was like, yeah, go riot, woohoo. Wait a minute. Oh no, they're coming to my house in Beverly Hills. Help, stop, don't do it. You see what happens to these people the moment the rioters show up to their neighborhoods? Yeah. But it's okay, because I assure you the cops will be there to protect the rich people. I love it. In Manhattan during Hurricane Sandy and the power gets shut out, I tell you, the first place to get their power back, do you know which part of New York got their power back first? Upper West Side. All the very, very rich people in the university got to put their feet up while the people in the poor areas in Brooklyn didn't have power. I think it was for like weeks.
Regarding being set up to fail, which it does seem like a lot of these cops are by these district attorneys, when you're in like high stress situations, people will do crazy things when they're being set up to fail. Like in World War I, they'd be told to go over the trenches. They would just eventually just mutiny and not go. In Vietnam, if you had a lieutenant that was going to take you down a trail where you knew you were going to get shot, that lieutenant would find a grenade in his tent in the middle of the night. They call it fragging for a reason, because they would kill their commanding officers if they were going to get them killed. Now, we're not in that high-stress situation domestically right now, and the cops aren't in the military. They can resign. And at what point, Chauvin had his life destroyed because he tried to – this girl that shot the guy that was – a girl that was about to stab someone, or that guy that –
oh, yeah,
his life's going to be torched because he saved someone's life.
Kim Potter was trying to make an arrest on a guy who was wanted on an aggravated robbery warrant, who was armed, and she shot him one time and he died, and now she's going to go to prison. Kyle Rittenhouse watched his community get burned. I'll be very careful for Juan Williams. Watched businesses all throughout his community burnt, get set on fire. They almost blew up a gas station.
So I was there.
And Drew is there, and he shows up, and a friend gives him a weapon. He even rendered aid to the extremists. Now I think he's going to get life in prison. I do. He'll get life. No jury is going to do anything for justice or principle. They're going to be like, you know what? The kid can go to prison for all I care. I don't want to get hurt because of demoralization. And it's only possible because there are cops who arrested him, because they're like, well, you know, it's the system. At what point is there someone who's going to be like, there's right and there's wrong?
I just think we sound like Mexico now. This is what the cartel does.
Right.
I mean, you take a look at what happened with Chauvin, right? You guys covered it the other night. The alternate juror literally came out and was like, I was pretty much scared that riots would come.
No, not pretty much. Literally said, I did not want to go through riots and destruction again. And I was scared someone would come to my house to retaliate.
Right. So that is by design, because what was happening, right? You had someone that took the stand, right? They were BLM, Antifa show up to their house. They're throwing pig's blood, pigs' heads on their front door, threatening them.
For the witness.
The witness.
And that's in California, though.
Sending a message. Doesn't matter where it is.
Right.
This sends a message across the U.S. Bro, that is literally what cartels do that, but take
Yep.
it a step further. They'll send a human head to your house.
They'll hang someone from highways.
Highways. They'll send a message. They threaten media the same way. Black Lives Matter and Antifa are slowly going in that direction where it's not going to be animal pig heads. It's going to be humans, man. It's a very extreme thing for me to say, but this is what happens in foreign countries like Mexico. They're like the strong arm to threaten media and police officers and even the military.
So what do you think happens then if the police departments are all gone? A lot of people think it's going to be rampant crime everywhere. I don't think so. I think in cities it'll be bad. I already live in an area without a police department, so I don't care.
I think people will, especially in the big blue cities, in terms of, okay, BLM wants to police themselves, right? So let's think about the Ohio video, right? Ma'Khia Bryant. Just picture that video without the cop there. That's what it would look like.
And
Self-policing.
everyone seems to be okay with that.
Yeah, black people kicking each other in the head, stabbing each other in the throat.
Well, but outside of race, just people in cities in general, what do you think's going to happen to these Upper West Side progressives who are very wealthy in New York when the cops are gone?
I think they're going to freak out. I think these are the same people that are voting for gun control laws as well.
Oh, yeah,
right.
they
So these
are.
are the same morons that
Tom
don't put
Steyer.
they don't put two and two together. It's like, hey, Biden is saying let's your Second Amendment right means nothing. It's not an absolute, right? He says that amendment is not an absolute. Oh,
What?
but by the way, we're going to abolish the cops. So yeah, you can't call 911 whenever you need
listen.
someone to save your life.
If the people in the Upper West Side of New York vote for this, I say good for them. Congratulations. I don't live there. If they don't want cops, they don't get cops. But I tell you this. We've already seen what's going on in New York City. We've already heard from these people. They are starting to panic because the cops don't show up anymore because they're all gone.
I think
So-
that goes back to what I said. People are going to have to experience it. They're going to have to feel it because
It's
if
not-
you don't feel it, then you're never going to know what it really looks like or even feels like.
I wouldn't necessarily frame it that way. It's more like they must understand why they have to take responsibility for themselves. I'm sick of everyone just being like, someone else will do it for me.
Yeah.
The government should give me money. The government should pay for all of my bills. The cops should protect me. I don't protect myself. And if I get hurt, it's your fault. I'll sue you, and then you give me money.
Yeah.
Nah,
That's what they want.
People got to be responsible for
But
themselves.
you do want public options of defense, because if you have to protect yourself and I have to protect myself, and then you step on my doorstep, then and someone gets killed, like that's a bad situation. You want the cop to be the one to decide who was right, who was wrong.
No, you
Stop to basically create the peace, to keep the peace.
Well, you want a neutral arbiter between conflicted factions to de-escalate and to stop the conflict, but that doesn't always happen. Cops go in and they're going to protect themselves first and foremost. People need to be responsible, but people have lost responsibility because we keep having the government do things for them, and now they're just becoming lazy and disinterested and demoralized. People need to have purpose. They need to have hard work, but they wake up every day with everything being done for them in this wealthy society, and they have no purpose. So the system is on fire specifically because the people who inherited this wealth from the previous generation don't know how that wealth was built. It's like they say, like wealth lasts 3 generations. The first person makes all the money because they work really hard. They then raise their child to understand hard work, but the kid grows up pretty rich and then kind of maintains it a little bit. The next kid who grows up doesn't experience the hard work at all. Because their grandpa's long been retired. They inherit all the money, and then it all vanishes after the 3rd generation. That's what's happening right now for the country. We had we had World War II. We had people fighting, sacrificing to literally defeat Nazism and fascism. Mm-hmm. They come back to this country, and boom, business is booming. Life was good. Then we get the next generation hippy dippies doing hippy dippy stuff. And then we have the next couple of generations where it's just we've inherited all of this wealth. We don't know how it was built, and we're squandering it as it just evaporates in front of us. Maybe it's time people, hey, whether we want it or not, hard times are coming.
Yeah.
And hard times make strong men.
That's right.
And that's just how it goes, isn't it? So maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe time is like a river. You can move around within the river, but the time is a-flowing in that direction.
Hard times do make strong men, well, theoretically, but you don't know who these strong men are going to be. I think we talked about this when we had Ben Stewart on talk about the 4th turning, that if there was some cataclysm and some chaos, hard times, World War, that maybe it would be the Chinese that would win and become the strongmen afterwards. So it doesn't mean that we will become the strongmen if we enter the hard times. We may be wiped out as a result. You got to be very careful looking for
Well,
that stuff.
let's jump to the current state of the union. Where are we right now? Are we entering hard times? I think the answer is yes, and we have some metrics to back that up. From Deadline, Joe Biden's address to Congress snares 26.9 million viewers. Hey, 26.9 million. That's what, like
3 times the Oscars?
that's oh yeah,
About,
yeah.
yeah.
It is.
But no.
Pretty-
That's what? How many people voted? So that's what?
81 million?
Yeah. So
30% of people
apparently.
voted for him.
Yeah.
wow. So not a whole lot of people. But 26.9. That's surely a good number. Way down from Trump. Oh wait. Hold on a minute. Way down.
He's less
Hold,
popular.
hold on a minute. You mean to tell me that Donald Trump got 47.7 million viewers in his first speech to a joint session, February 28th? Okay. Oh, okay. So all right. You know, it's a little bit more than half. It's not that bad. We're still good. I'm sure of the people who watched, Joe Biden speak, considering there were much less people.
Right.
It was probably way more people who actually liked Biden.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm sure,
Uh-huh.
I'm sure the polling is going to be really good for Biden, and we can breathe a sigh of relief. I actually have a CNN article. 7 in 10 who watched Biden's speech said it left them feeling optimistic. Okay, that's good. So, all right, considering that there was, way less people, it makes sense that Biden would have polled better than Donald Trump. They say the 51% who had a very positive reaction to Biden's speech is a bit more muted than reaction to the first address from other recent presidents. Wait a minute.
Wait, what?
51%. That's a good number, right?
Yeah.
What was Donald Trump?
Surely less than that.
57%.
Oh.
With more viewers, Donald Trump had more people with a very positive reaction to his speech. Yeah, we're not doing too well. Even the people who voted for Biden don't care about Biden.
No, they voted against Trump.
That's right. And so you can't function as a society when you have no cohesion. So now we have a political